Hi everyone, this is Peter and Phil McPhail with Lifestyle Properties of Maine. This is our first episode of Ask Lifestyle Properties of Maine, and we're going to cover some of the most commonly asked questions that we get in the real estate business.
Right.
And also, if you have some specific questions that you'd like to ask, please leave them in the comments below and we will pick which ones we will get answers for you. We'll do another episode to cover those. If you're unable to leave comments, feel free to email your questions to lifestylemaine@gmail.com. On today's episode, one of the most common topics that we get asked is tree growth tax status. So we're going to cover, Phil, what is tree growth tax status?
Tree growth tax status is a current use tax program here in the state of Maine. And for those owners who promise to produce timber products that supply our timber industry here in Maine, we'll give those property owners a huge tax incentive to do so.
And I think probably what we can do might help the viewers understand it better as we come up with an example, leave an example like we've got here is, if you're assessed values for tree growth versus non-tree growth acres. So, like every county is going to be a little bit different on the valuation on the timber type, correct?
Correct. Yeah, every county has its own set assessed values that are set by the state tax assessor for hardwood, mixed wood, and softwood timber stands. So as an example, here in the town of Lincoln, let's say you got a 50-acre lot and it's not in tree growth. Town of Lincoln assesses timberland not in tree growth at about $1,000 an acre, so pretty easy math. 50 acres would be assessed at roughly $50,000. And at our $22 a thousand mill rate, I think I wrote that down somewhere. I think it's around $1,100, right? $1,150.
Yes.
Yeah. And then in tree growth in Penobscot County, where Lincoln is, the tax assessed value, and let's say it's a mixed wood stand, 50 acres, would be $165 an acre. And if I do the math right, I think that's $82.50.
Correct.
For assessed value.
Yep.
So we're going to take 22, the $1,100 in taxes versus I think $180 roughly.
Yeah.
So you're saving over $900 in 1 year on your taxes on that 50 acres.
Yeah. So you certainly save money. Mm-hmm. And now, what property qualifies for tree growth? I've got to have 10 acres, but I think people don't understand exactly what that 10 acres needs to be.
That 10 acres needs to be timberland. It can't be roads. It can't be fields. It can't be non-forested land like open swamps and things like that. So you have to have 10 forested acres that can be utilized for timber production.
And I think one of the things too, if you're going to buy a property and it's 10 acres, it's in tree growth, you've got 10 wooded acres, but you're going to build on it.
Well, you're gonna have to take out an acre out of tree growth minimum. In most towns, you get a minimum lot size of at least an acre, some more, some less. However, once you reduce the acreage that's in timber under 10 acres, you have to remove it from the program.
The entire property would have to be pulled out.
Yes.
Because you no longer qualify.
Right.
So, Phil, some of the buyers will ask us, should I buy a property in tree growth?
Well, it depends. It depends on what your intended use of the property is. If you're going to buy, let's say you're going to buy 100 acres and you want to buy that property and hunt on it in the fall, as your hunting property. Maybe you want some firewood coming off of it to supply your heating needs. That would be an ideal property to leave in tree growth or put in tree growth, as long as you don't plan on developing it. Now, if your goal for that 100 acres is to carve it into 6 or 8, 10, 15 lots, whatever, and sell those, then definitely you don't want to do tree growth.
Stay away from tree growth on that puppy.
That's right.
And that kind of leads into the next question, the downfall. What are the downside of being in a tree growth, having a property in tree growth?
Well, the tax savings comes at a cost, okay? So if you take advantage of that tax savings and at some future day you decide you don't want to be in tree growth, you now want to develop your property lots, you're going to have to pay a penalty. And the penalty can be pretty significant depending on the type of acreage, whether it's got waterfront or anything like that. But typically the penalty is going to be 20 to 30% of the difference between a full assessed value and the tree growth value. And those tree growth values, as we talked about earlier, are set per county based on timber type. Every year that the property is in up to 10 years, the penalty is going to be 30% of that difference. From year 10 through year 20, it reduces by 1% per year until it gets to the minimum penalty of 20% of that difference.
And you hit on a big point. It depends. I mean, if I'm going to buy a 50-acre lot out in the middle of nowhere, no water frontage, the penalties can be fairly reasonable.
Yes.
And it's a one-time penalty.
That's correct.
Just
Yeah.
pay it once and you're done.
And you're done. And another option is if you've got a property, and we just did this with a client that was in tree growth, he didn't want to maintain the forest as working timberland. He wants to preserve it, and that's his right to do, right? But if you're not going to cut any timber, folks, don't don't think you can just let the trees grow up and fall over, because that's not forest management. That's, in my opinion, poor management. But if you don't want to pay that penalty, you can move that property sideways into another current use program here in Maine called open space. And if you work with a tax assessor, we did one here in a town nearby here not too long ago. No problem, moved it into open space, a little bit higher tax assessed value. However, there was no penalty to pay.
All right. There's still some tax savings.
Yes, yeah, still less than full assessed value.
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing, really, what we've seen over the years is if you're buying a lakefront property that's all in tree growth, that penalty is going to be hefty.
Yeah, it is.
It's going to be hefty. So you need to know that on lakefront property. Non-lakefront, like you said, back in the woods, it's usually fairly reasonable.
Yeah, going back to whether you should or should not buy it, as long as you're informed and you
Right.
know what the penalty is going to be,
Right.
even if it's in tree growth, you might buy it. And we sell property in tree growth all the time that people remove from the program and do other things with it. So yeah, that's a case by case basis, and those values are going to fluctuate from town to town. In unorganized territories versus municipalities, it's going to be a little bit different assessed values.
Hey everyone, if you're new to the channel, please like, subscribe, and click the all notifications so you don't miss a video. But how do I put a property in tree growth? That's a question that we get.
Well, for a property that's never been in tree growth, you're going to have to engage the services of a forester.
Mm-hmm.
You got to work with your forester. They will do what's called a timber type map. They'll go out on the property, look at the stands, and map out hardwood, softwood, and mixed wood growth. They'll also work with you to develop a 10-year forest management plan, and they'll look at your goals for the property and tailor that plan towards what you are trying to accomplish with it. With obviously the primary use of the property has to be growing and harvesting timber at some future date. They also will fill out an application form with a breakdown on the acres and roads and other non-forested types to come up with a full assessed value for the tree growth program. For property that you buy that's already in the tree growth current use tax program, that's can be a little bit different. If the current owner has a plan, let's say, Pete, they've got a 10-year plan with 5 years still on that plan before they have to renew.
Right.
As long as the current owner and the forester agree, you can adopt their plan, recertify under that plan, finish out that 5 years before you do your next 10-year management plan.
So that you kind of hit on that. How much time is left in the plan?
Right.
The plan's good for 10 years.
10 years.
And then, depending on where you're buying that property along that time frame.
Right.
So
every 10 years you got to recertify, and your forester's going to update your plan.
Right.
You
might change some goals.
You may decide to take some land out and do something with it, like we did, where we took part of our timberland and converted it to field for wildlife management areas, that kind of thing. That's all part of it.
So before we get into the misconceptions, typical cost of an FMP?
It depends on the amount of acreage, but a 40-acre lot, we see a lot of those in Maine. They're going to run, $700 to $1,000 depending on the forester you speak to typically, and that would be a standard plan. And then we have what's called the NRCS plan, like you and I have on one of our properties. That's an enhanced plan, and it allows us to take advantage of grant money and cost sharing programs through NRCS for things like timber stand improvement, from pre-commercial thinnings, maybe some road maintenance, culverts, that kind of thing.
The cost of those plans, they can be 2 to 3 times.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit more.
Depends on the size of the acreage.
Depends on the size of the acreage, but sometimes there's money to cover that.
Yeah, sometimes you can get cost sharing.
Cost sharing on the plan itself.
Yeah.
So let's roll right into the common misconceptions. Who has control of your land when it's in tree growth?
You do. Like you said, that's one of the biggest questions we're going to ask, or one of the things you'll see comments on in our YouTube videos is, I don't want tree growth because someone else is going to tell me what I'm going to do with my land. Well, that's not true.
That's no,
It's
it couldn't be further from the truth.
Now you're going to be in control. You and your forester come up with your plan. You follow it. And that's that simple.
Yeah. And then another thing we hear is, like, oh, it's in tree growth. I'm not going to buy that because I can't harvest the trees.
Yeah, and that's 180 degrees from what it's intended to do. It is made for harvesting timber. If your goal is to grow trees, harvest them for income over long periods of time, do a nice sustainable management of that property, this is for you. If your goal is to buy timberland, develop it, or watch the trees grow up and die and fall over, you don't qualify for the plan.
Right. And I think we've kind of answered this one, but it doesn't save you any money.
Yeah, well, we've already shown that. So it's in 1 year's time on a small lot, you can pay for your forest management plan and then some.
No problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I know our hunting lot in Surrey,
Mm-hmm.
that's easily in a year's time we pay for that.
Oh yeah, I think
it.
it almost paid for an enhanced NRCS plan.
No question.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing, forget about the NRCS plan. Not every forester can do those. They have to be certified through NRCS. So, and if you got any questions, you can reach out to Peter or I, and we will be happy to answer those for you. And you can reach us at the phone number here on the screen.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys watching today. And again, just any questions that you have that you'd like us to answer, submit them in the comments below. And again, if you don't, if you're watching on your TV and you don't have access or don't know how to leave comments, just shoot us an email to the address here on the screen. Again, this has been Peter and Phil McPhail with Lifestyle Properties Maine. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys again real soon.
Have a great day.